Good morning. Welcome to Mission Monday. I am Cindy Valentine, Mission Lead for the Relay for Life of Northern Virginia. As we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic, we believe that it is important to remind everyone that the American Cancer Society continues to support cancer patients and their families 24 hours a day, every day. Don't forget that you or your loved ones can have questions related to cancer addressed by calling the National Cancer Information Center at 1-800-227-2345 or visiting the American Cancer Society on the web at cancer.org. Today, on Mission Monday, we are sharing information about support services for cancer patients and their families at any time, and especially during the pandemic. In this video, we've included mission moments about several of the priority areas within the American Cancer Society and the ACS Cancer Action Network. There's an interview that I conducted with Chris Green, Vice President of Marketing for the American Cancer Society, about the intersection of his longtime career and personal cancer journey. He and I also discussed how the American Cancer Society is working toward finding ways to eliminate disparities in healthcare. In the email that went out to participants this morning, we have shared videos highlighting several ACS-funded researchers showing how your donations to the American Cancer Society have directly impacted their life-saving work. There are even virtual tours of their labs. Their areas of research are focused on preventing cell metastasis, treatments for childhood cancers, and the study of adrenal cancers. In addition, we have links to lots of vital information about nutrition, skin cancer prevention, dealing with cancer throughout a pandemic, cancer screenings, and many other programs and services. So take a look at the information we have provided, and remember, the American Cancer Society is available 24/7 at cancer.org or 1-800-227-2345. Hi, I'm Cynthia Ballantyne, and I am on the event leadership team for the Relay for Life of Northern Virginia. And today I'm honored to have with me Chris Green, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the American Cancer Society. And I've known Chris a long time. I volunteered in the office where he works many, many years ago, and I'm just really glad that he's able to join us this morning. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Can you tell us how long you've worked for the American Cancer Society and tell us a little bit about your job?
Yeah, definitely. It's a little over 26 years now that we've been there. And so I've had quite a few different kinds of roles at the society. Start out at the community level. In fact, one of the first things that I was tasked with was rallying volunteers and communities around Relay for Life, some starting new ones and continuing others. And then pretty quickly, I got into doing some marketing and communications work with the society about 3 years in. And then I've been doing that type of role in different ways and different geographies over the years. Until today, I'm as you mentioned, the Vice President of Marketing Communications, serving our Southeast region. So the team of communicators who work in the region, which is basically Virginia to Florida. And that's what I do today.
Okay, thank you. I know that your life's work and your regular life have intersected over the last year. And can you please tell us about that intersection, your cancer diagnosis and the treatment that you have been going through?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. You really do meet a lot of cancer survivors and people who someone they care about has had cancer. I would say probably thousands over 26 years.
Yeah.
And so I found myself it actually started with a mole that started to look different. And over the years, the amount of times that I said, hey, if you have something like that happen to you, you should get it checked out. And so I followed my own advice and went to a dermatologist, had the mole checked out that had changed. Is probably no bigger than could fit under your pinky. The color just looked different. Fully expecting I'd done that before. You get a little card that says, looks good. We biopsied it, did the testing. And this time got the call from the dermatologist, which gets your attention when he leaves that message. And in fact, I was doing a little bit of traveling and we were able to catch up the next day. In fact, at the American Cancer Society's global headquarters, happened to be that day in the hallway.
Wow.
And took a chair and got the news, some malignant melanoma, which for skin cancers, that's the one you really don't want to hear about. It can spread, and it's the most deadly skin cancer, although there are options. We it was deep enough that he said, hey, we need to pick a surgeon and do a surgery and see how far it is. The biopsy had not found the margins, which means there's still more melanoma cells there, which as we know about all cancer, there's the idea is stop the spread if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And so did that pretty quickly, had the surgery. Did that with a lot of cancers, including melanoma. At that stage, you sort of check the lymph nodes too, so had some lymph nodes removed. And the net result is that there's melanoma, had got clean margins on a pretty major big surgery, took a clump out of my side there. Sort of looked like a shark bite. The surgeon said, it's fine though. Worth doing that, and found just microscopic level of some melanoma cells, but no tumor in the lymph nodes, which meant that it was starting to try to spread, which is you get that news. So that led me to the next step, and started to see a medical oncologist, talk about options. And it was interesting for my particular situations. Just about 18 months before I'm sitting in the oncologist office, there was approval of a drug called Opdivo, which is an immunotherapy drug for my particular type of cancer. And where I was, if that's how sort of cancer drugs go. They get different approvals at different times for different uses. The science keeps going, figure out new things. And so I signed up for a year round of that once a month. to go on Opdivo and monitor that with the idea. Pretty neat. Immunotherapy is one of these new sort of superhero type of drugs and concepts that we've been hearing a lot about. It's being used with a lot of different cancers more and more every year. So I did that. Neat thing about it actually uses it sort of tells your immune system to attack the cancer cells itself rather than typical chemotherapy, which is really killing cancer cells and often other kinds of cells too, which is when you get the really serious side effects that we see so many people have with hair loss and nausea and all that. So did that for a year. And because the immunotherapy, the advances, it wasn't a typical chemo. I had some fatigue, got a little tired, but I never even missed a day of work, which is really interesting.
Wow.
And
Wow.
most people in
Yeah.
cancer treatment, historically wouldn't say that, except for the surgery, that obviously took some time. But so I did that for a year and I completed the full year. And as you go, I really start to identify with some things I heard other people say, telling their story. You begin to have these scans and you hear cancer patients talk a lot about that, like, have my scans this week, which means, hey, you're looking to see, right? Is there a tumor or something going on somewhere else? And I'll tell you, that was, even lots of needles getting infused, all of that type of thing is not the funnest thing in the world to do. But the worst part for me was that part, that waiting in between the scan
Right.
and hearing about what the results are. And because even though you feel pretty good about your path you're on, you're not scanning for nothing, right? You know
Right.
that chance.
Yeah.
And so so far, and after a year of that, have had clean scans periodically, to the point where now I appear to be totally cancer free, and feeling
That's
great.
great. That's really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So I passed that milestone, and that's where I am now, and hopefully that stays that way. The scans are going to be further and further apart until finally, hopefully I don't do them anymore. And so, it looks like the surgery plus this new immunotherapy is really my answer. It's interesting. I work at ACS, so I
Right.
checked into our role, if any, in this drug that I had. And what I found out is that while their ACS money didn't directly fund the Opdivo drug, so to speak, we had invested, which is very typical for ACS research.
Right.
We had invested in many, many grants years ago and over the years that did help understand the immune system's role in fighting cancer,
Mhm.
and then immunotherapy basic science principles as well. So I got to see that link, and it often makes me think. It's why folks like who do Relay for Life, you're fueling that process to keep the advances coming. And it really dawned on me, gosh, 2 years earlier, in my situation, that would not have, they would not have said, hey, let's do this. We'll watch and hope. And
Yeah.
about 50% of the time or so, it will metastasize. Sometimes it wouldn't, in my particular situation where I was. So, this year's money is keeping that going. And at some point down the line, there is a line like that a discovery happened that wasn't available before. So I benefited from it, which is
Yes.
interesting and humbling, actually, to think about.
I have been able to do some research and find that the American Cancer Society has done a lot of the foundational research for treatments that have helped my friends too. So
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
it's it really feels good because all the work that we put in really does make a difference. So my next question to you is, how difficult has it been to find the balance between your work as someone who supports cancer patients and being a cancer patient yourself?
Yeah, it was really strange, and I'm getting used to that too, because as we go way back, and yeah, storytelling is a big part of helping people understand how things like Relay for Life are important. So I've done that a lot, and it's been a lot of hearing people's stories, asking if they'd be willing to share them, and finding ways to do that. I was very uncomfortable at first, actually, when I got it got to a point, someone said, gosh, you talk about storytelling a lot with ACS, and you sure have a story. And I was like, oh
Right.
gosh, do I? And so that was weird. And then also, interestingly, I'd seen so many people who going through treatment, particularly some that was effective, some who eventually lost their battle. That happens too while you're working
Mhm.
ACS. And I sort of, you get these feelings because of what I went through, certainly was serious, but I had it, I also felt like, I compared to what some people go through, mine wasn't that difficult and bad. In fact, I'd sit in that infusion room. And so you see the people who, ironically, it's a really happy place. There's something about perspective that
Right.
happens. But they're sick, right? Most of them, you're seeing hair loss. You're seeing people who clearly have lost a lot of weight and they're very weak and all of that. So, and I wasn't, that didn't affect me like that. And so you sort of had this feeling, and had several people say, no, everyone's story has value in this. And so I that was hard, but I've sort of embraced
Yeah.
that, doing things like today even. Yeah.
Right. Well, that was when I read your story on your relay page. I talked to other our committee members and told them that I would like to talk with you. And what I said was, boy, does he have a story.
Mhm.
So yes, and I appreciate you, taking the time to speak with us. What are some of the lessons that you have learned through this journey?
Yeah, it's true when you are faced with that kind of stuff, even that anxiety of the tests coming back, you learn some things, and I certainly learn, have a better perspective of what people and families go through. So I'm sensitive to that for sure. I also learned things I heard people say. It's really interesting that how many times I'm sure you've heard it too. We've heard some of the same people say it, that they tell a really horrifying cancer story that's very scary, cause a lot of anxiety and all of that. And so many times you hear people say, I didn't want to go through it, but I'm glad I went through it
Right.
because I learned these things. And but so you learn there's people. I was humbled by the people, ACS connected people, particularly because the Cancer Connection, who did stuff for me. I had someone, a great volunteer, Bruce Waldholtz,
Mhm.
who recently won a National Volunteer Award. Well, know him as a friend, so he's a colorectal doc, but it doesn't do my kind. But information and introductions and things like that, people stepping up and caring for you and what you're up to. So I gave you appreciation for that too as well. And I'll tell you, it also helped me appreciate, particularly relay, because I was so involved in that. But everything ACS, got a real appreciation for that work and what it means down the road. And I'll tell you, you will remember this happening in Norfolk, where my treatment was. There's Mermaid is sort of the
Right.
big thing, the symbol down there. And many years ago, because of the relay movement, there's a particular version of that public art mermaid in front of the treatment center that has rainbow scales for the cancer colors, and the mermaid's wearing a purple relay shirt, and it's
Cool.
right there as you walk in. And I would I always valued relaying what we did, but I really did. So I'd always park so I could walk by that mermaid who's sort of smiling with the relay. And so I got appreciation for what
Yeah.
ACS does on a different level too.
One other thing that I wanted to ask you about, because you had mentioned it in your writing on your page, was the service of the underserved communities, the
Yeah.
communities that really can't afford treatment, or aren't treatment's not available to them, and what the American Cancer Society is now trying to do about that.
Yeah, that's great. And I did get a sort of first row seat to that in perspective. I'll tell you that I was very fortunate to have health insurance. Employer provided health insurance, like a lot of people. So I was able to pay for the treatment and access it. That monthly cost, the bill would come. So I got the idea of what it looks like. If you
Yeah.
get medical bills, it shows you sort of the retail price of what you had if you paid for that. And I'll tell you, 35,000 or so dollars a month is what
Wow.
it would look like, which is not. But you begin to. you really begin to understand this isn't just, there's not a lot of people even
They
doing
can do
very
that.
well.
Right.
So of course I had insurance, but I also thought to myself, as I'm fortunate to do this, that there are people who don't have that kind of access. On the whole spectrum, there are probably a lot of people who wouldn't have checked out the mole at that point because they might not have access to healthcare, insurance, for or whatever the barriers are. And so inevitably that would have turned into a much more life-threatening situation, simply for lack of access for some people.
Right.
And then the treatment as well. You wonder about folks who, I got this amazing access to this breakthrough, and we're learning that a lot of the cancer problem is a disparity in access. So it's not so much, there's a lot of answers we've accumulated, especially over the last 20, 25 years I've seen. It's gone very quickly. And so we are at ACS and others in the cancer community are seeing that a lot of the deaths from cancer are related to lack of access to answers we already have. It's just a matter of getting them. There are lots of reasons: insurance, transportation. Some people need lodging. There are a lot of reasons there are barriers. Some people are in rural settings that you can't quite figure that out. So there's all these reasons. So ACS is looking at that from research, advocacy, and education angles of how do we create health equity. So I got a front row seat to that, with knowing that probably there are people
Right.
who could benefit from this who aren't getting it.
Okay, well, I thank you for your time. I think we're out of time. I really appreciate you talking with us today.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. It's good to be with you.